Can we get approval of today's agenda? Bert?
We're starting.
Okay. My hand's up.
I saw your hand.
Okay.
No one could miss it. How about the minutes? Any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as read. I read them, no problems, and I checked the video. Thank you, Bradley and Sarah. Thanks, Sean.
Any objections to the minutes?
Anybody ever, just for, as point of information, if anybody ever finds something in the minutes, they're open forever for amendment, so, don't feel that this is your only shot.
Duty noted, but I do say thank you. It's actually easier for me to find the video.
There is a chair's report in there.
Yeah.
So there should be. Yeah, there should be, yeah.
Okay. Welcome to our February meeting. First,
Let's see, and then do the chair's
Russian.
Oh, I'm
Are you
sorry. I
aware
thought
that
you
the
was-
cards are not working? There are 3 people
Yes,
behind me
even me.
downstairs.
Even me.
What's not working?
The ID, our passes, I just used on the subway, it's not working downstairs. There are 3 more people behind me.
Okay,
I wonder if
I
it's
don't
because
even
it's a
know who it
different
was.
floor that they're going to.
No, the
No,
entrance
through
thing.
Oh, the entrance
the
thing.
gates.
And then
we
he
have-
said, oh, it
we
happened
had
to
trouble.
Christopher also.
Yes.
We had trouble, we were having trouble, that's why we put everybody into the system. But we'll.
I had exactly the same problem. It worked for the prior.
Well, if you want to do the chair.
No.
I didn't realize he was still engaged.
So folks, let me do the chair's report and then we'll go right to our speaker. Welcome to our February meeting. I'd like to introduce our new transportation planner, Sheila Banesh, otherwise known as the Banesh. Sheila comes to us after working at the Center for an Urban Future, which recently put out a great report on the struggles healthcare workers have in their daily transit commutes. I'll ask Sheila to say a few words about herself.
Hello, everyone.
Well, that's the few words, I guess. You want to say anything else, Sheila?
I'm really happy and excited to be here.
Well, you haven't seen the meeting yet.
Fantastic
Reserve
work
judgment.
for us.
Bill, I saw
You
her
gotta
at the
taste it
open
what it's
house.
like. I take a lot
I
of
saw her at the open
noise.
house. I saw her before everyone.
Actually, this has no sense because Sam hasn't spoken yet, so I'll skip that. A measure of the need to deal with congestion is seen in public criticism of bus performance, which was on display at this morning's board meeting. A recent report graded 3/4 of bus routes D or F. In addition, congestion and slowing bus speeds have led to declining bus ridership. However, to be honest, I was at 145th and Broadway yesterday and watched as 40 people piled into the rear door of the BX-19 on its way to the Bronx. And I called Darrell Irick, and he's going to have some folks up there, and the Chief Financial Officer, Bob Ferran, Darrell, and I all agree that paying bus ridership is down. We're not entirely sure bus ridership is down.
Was these all students out of school?
No, they weren't all students. No way. It's the thing to do there, apparently, at that bus stop. People knock on the door, someone opens it for them, and they all pile in. New York City Transit clearly has responsibility for these issues, but many of the factors slowing buses are within control of the city, and DOT Commissioner Trottenberg acknowledged that today and would like to be a full partner when President Byford unleashes his bus action plan, which is coming. City Council member Mark Levine pointed out municipal control of street surface, street space, traffic signals, and traffic enforcement indicates the city must do more. There may be some relief on the horizon. I've already told you about that. Speaking of President Byford, he has certainly made his presence felt in his first month at New York City Transit. I'm sure you've seen press reports of his rides on various parts of the system and his pledges to instill a new customer focus in serving bus and subway riders. He also wants to establish really good relations with the working folks of New York City Transit, and he's well on his way to doing that. Ellen and I and Bill had a meeting with him where we were able to discuss some issues with him directly. As he's in the process of getting up to speed on buses and working on an action plan, we requested that we have an opportunity to address bus issues with him at a later time, which he has agreed to. We also proposed, and he agreed, that he can be a speaker of ours at one of our next meetings. He was on hand for the recent Canarsie Tunnel closure, open houses, and so were we. Members of staff were at each of the series of 4 meetings that concluded on Valentine's Day. Hell of a way to spend Valentine's Day evening too, wasn't it? Hearing Tony Murphy chant, "Don't shut it down, don't shut it down." Much of the concern expressed came from residents, at least at the last one, near 14th Street, who were concerned about traffic impacts on surrounding neighborhoods with the proposed closure of 14th Street to most travel by private motor vehicles and related changes such as the bike lane proposed, the two-way bike lane proposed for 13th Street. Surprisingly, some residents had said they heard nothing about the impending closure of the western portion of the L line, although press coverage of this issue has been substantial. In addition to issues around the Canarsie Tunnel closure, the subway system continues to underperform on a regular basis. Tuesday of this week, you may have all heard about this. There were signal problems at 5th Avenue and 59th Street, which caused major disruptions on the E, F, N, Q, R, and W. And that lasted many hours. And that was actually as a result of work that had been done in that area on a GO previously. So President Biker is looking into that. Why something was left improperly, and that caused that problem.
Andrew,
Yes?
I happened to, because your luck, everybody's luck, I was caught in that. And I will just tell you, you know the issue that I always bring up, communications with, I call them passengers, you call them customers, but the people who
I
ride.
call them riders.
Oh, okay.
Could you all just speak a little louder?
Okay, anyway.
Or you could move closer, Carol.
I couldn't know to the recording.
Okay. And, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
I just don't want to holler because people always accuse me of hollering.
No, no, you're not.
Okay,
You're not.
at any rate, I wound up being calming the people in that car because they had pre-recorded announcements about the work being done. And that there may be, you know, various changes. Even though when you were in Manhattan, they were talking about what was going on in Queens and Brooklyn. But then, a voice finally popped in after the pre-recorded announcements did not make any sense to those of us who were stuck at, I think I was either at 57th and what's the next stop after,
5th Avenue.
after 5th Avenue?
57th and 7th.
Yes, okay. And it didn't make any sense. And we came in on an whatever it was, finally, a live person got on and said, disregard what you've heard. This is the situation. And then we will be starting shortly. Shortly was 17 more minutes. And so, again, I want to
Because
go
it's all
on
relevant.
record. I was going to bring this up later, but since you brought it up in your board report.
You can still bring it up.
I know, but
I don't want
I
to delay
am saying,
Sam.
no, but I just want to go on record once again that communication with passengers, customers, riders sucks.
It's a major component of the new president's initiatives. And I can tell you, after all of the emails that I've sent to them about improper announcements, all last weekend, the GOs were pretty much announced properly. They are working on getting a script to every conductor because
No,
it
but
shouldn't
what I'm
vary.
saying, no, is that they had a recorded announcement. And if there hadn't been a trouble, but they
No,
didn't
the recorded
deal-
announcement, see, the conductors get radio updates, so they know
Guess what?
something that's more relevant than the
Guess
announcement.
what? They didn't get it. And when I finally got to my meeting an hour late, and when I finally got home that evening and looked at on New York One and everything
We'll
else.
go into this later, okay?
Okay, but I'm just telling you, I want to go on record.
Also this month marked the launch of a new MTA Transit Committee agenda book format. It's much more graphics. You can find what you're looking for more easily. It's major improvement. All of the board members thought it was a
It's
real.
remarkable. They're
It's-
finally writing down the operations report, the Department of Subways, all in this nice cohesive
Yeah,
thing
it's really
that used to
nice.
be like little gold nuggets you had to catch or that was gone. It was,
Please mark your calendars for the March 8th meeting of the full PCAC, where we will have as our special guest Assemblywoman Amy Paulin, the chair of the New York Assembly Committee on Corporations, Authorities, and Commissions, who obviously has some oversight over MTA. In this uncertain state legislative session, we are looking forward to Assemblywoman Paulin giving us her perspective on the MTA, the legislature, and her committee's work overseeing the operations of the MTA and its agencies. And I'm sure we'll have something to say about the pending congestion pricing proposal. And with that segue, let me introduce Sam Schwartz of Sam Schwartz Consulting. Sam is the person to talk about congestion pricing, as he is the architect of many of these proposals. And Sam, you going to talk from there? or-
Sure.
Oh,
I think he single-handedly revived it, I would say.
yeah.
I would say.
Hi, Andrew, thank you. And yes, I've been associated with congestion pricing since John Lindsay days. Who here remembers John Lindsay as mayor?
How many of us remember you
Great
with
vote.
John Lindsay?
Right, we had tolls on the East and Harlem River bridges. We got it passed then. I'll get into some of this. Today, I'll be talking about the Move New York plan, which is the plan Andrew referred to. I'm the architect of that plan, and there are certainly a team of people that I work with, Alex Matheson and Charlie Kamenoff, among others, on it, so it's really a team effort. And the Fix New York City panel report, which you heard about, and I was on that panel, so I'll tell you a little bit about that. Move New York is a grassroots campaign. It's environmental groups, transit advocates, and others. This is not part of my company. I do this, and I've been doing it on my own money, and using whatever. I take nothing for it, and I'm not asking for anything, please. Nobody worry about me. The Fix New York City panel, 15 members chosen by Governor Cuomo. Usually I've been on the outs. I have never been invited to the mayoral panel, governor's panel, and surprise, I was invited to this one, which I think was a signal that they were serious about congestion pricing. Otherwise, why invite me, a troublemaker, to this? This group knows about the transit crisis, the awful on-time numbers. I'm sorry it came out. Sometimes things get blurred. That was 88% going down to 68% in on-time performance. But there's a second thing that's happening that's also changing the equation, and that is traffic speeds have plummeted to their lowest since horse and buggy days. And actually I have some 1915 speeds that are faster than this. So the reason that that's important is, as I've been going around, and I've been going around for a long time, and I've been certainly for the last 7 or 8 years post the Bloomberg plan, spending time with the opponents. And the opponents are the drivers. They have the windshield view. Something has happened in the last year, in the last 6 months, and that is people who are driving cars are saying, enough already, do something about it. It's gotten so bad out there. So I'm finding support that I didn't have before, and it's from drivers that say you've got to do something about it. And we're a city that thinks that we're a world city. Well, we can imagine we're a world city, but if we don't have a good transportation system, we're not going to compete with London and Paris and so many other cities. And I think this is important for the business community to understand. And we're beginning to see champions in the past weeks. Revney has come out in support. The partnership has come out in support. Scott Reckler, who is a champion for this on the MTA board, he is coming out for support. So it's no longer just a few of us alone that are going out and talking about this. They're going out as well. And because they're really worried about New York City business and New York City losing its edge. Losing our competitive edge. I was so upset when London did it in 2003, only because I wanted New York City to be first. It was invented here at Columbia University, congestion pricing. William Vickery, who went on to win the Nobel Prize in 1996 for economics, who used to pester me when I was a city official to implement congestion pricing, which I tried, and I'll discuss that briefly. But that's why I was jealous of London, not that I really resented London. I wanted us to be the #1 city on doing it. And since then, London has done amazing things with its street system, with its rail system, with its buses, and a dozen other cities don't, have congestion pricing. But not New York City, except, see, this is not moving forward, except, people say congestion pricing, oh my God, what's going to happen? You're going to cripple us. Well, everybody in Staten Island has had to live with congestion pricing. Everybody gets charged in motor vehicles going to Staten Island. And the world doesn't come to an end. Everybody that comes from New Jersey and across the Hudson River in a car pays for doing it. And again, the world did not come to an end. So the hysteria that I get when we talk about charging people coming into the central business district is hysteria that just isn't supported by facts, events, and history. And we charge tolls on a number of bridges and tunnels, but they make no sense, and that's part of the big part of the Move New York plan. And it's really the result of three men. Mayor William Gaynor in 1911 removes the tolls from the East River bridges, so the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, Williamsburg, Queensboro, all had tolls, and all were expected to be maintained with tolls. And some of you may remember me from the 1980s when bridges were collapsing, when we had a fatal accident on the Brooklyn Bridge, and I had to close the Williamsburg Bridge. We had no funding source for those bridges. That was a mistake Mayor Gaynor made. Along came Robert Moses, and he builds 7 bridges, 2 tunnels, all with tolls. He's no dummy. Whatever you think of Bob Moses, you can't say he wasn't smart. And he gave good service, and he expected to give good service for that, and I'll describe a little bit about that. And then Nelson Rockefeller did something in 1968, which I supported, when he created the MTA, but he also did a second thing. He threw in the TBTA, the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, into the MTA. He misled Robert Moses into believing he'd be the head of the MTA, and Bob Moses, maybe this was one of the few times he was ever duped, the TBTA was folded into the MTA family. But Moses was not appointed by Rockefeller, Bill Ronan was, and that began the process of charging drivers more than the maintenance of the bridges and giving that money over to transit. And I certainly supported it at the time, but part of the problem is that's become such a major source, and it can't go up forever. And just going back, when we had toll booths on, and it ended on, I think it was July 11th, 1911, so on 2011, I recreated this booth, put it at the Williamsburg Bridge, tried to collect a few pennies and dimes from people. I wasn't terribly successful in doing that, but this was a fatal mistake, and it occurred shortly after an assassination attempt on Mayor William Gaynor's life. And while the police say that there's no connection there, I call that fake news. Let's get to the bottom of that finally. Just a little levity, please. No evidence on it. So there have been a number of attempts, and these are the 3 major ones. The John Lindsay one that was done as part of the air quality plan. Lindsay got the furthest. He got tolls on the East and Harlem River bridges in the state implementation plan, transportation control section, which I assisted in writing at that time. And we had tolls on the East and Harlem River bridges. Approved by the city, approved by the state, approved by the federal government. A new mayor comes in, A-beam, says, I'm not going to do it. NRDC, representing 13 environmental groups, goes to federal court, wins the lawsuit. So now, not only did the cities approve it, the state approve it, the federal government, but the U.S. court ordered it, tolls to be put on the Harlem River bridges. At this point, only an act of Congress could stop it. Well, that's what happened, an act of Congress. The Holtzman-Moynihan Amendment, 2 very progressive elected officials, they fell into that trap of well, tolls are so regressive on people, and so we didn't get it implemented then. 1980, after being pestered by William Vickery at many meetings on traffic, I tried to introduce congestion pricing by charging driver-only cars, forcing them to use the toll facilities. I was promptly sued by the AAA and the Garage Board of Trade, which practices congestion pricing. You go to the most congested parts of the city, it's more expensive. You go during Christmas time, it's even more expensive. Yet they sued when the city tried to do congestion pricing. The city lost the suit, and it was found that the state had the authority. And Bloomberg made a valiant attempt for congestion pricing, but as you know, it wasn't even taken up by the state legislature. Shelley Silver and others decided not to have a vote. There's lots of stories whether it was Bloomberg's fault, the legislature on it. I'm not going to get into that, but it didn't happen. So,
Sam, wasn't the problem with the Bloomberg proposal the fact that it only charged people east of the Hudson, basically? So you could have as much congestion as can be from New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, all vehicles coming in. But if you were from Long Island or Brooklyn or Queens, you would have been subject to the charge.
yeah, I don't think that was it. I don't think people were looking, because New Jersey is already paying a pretty hefty fee to come in, so it was really rationalism. So that part I didn't hear. Maybe I can run through the
Yeah,
presentation.
I was gonna wait till the end, but Andrew went out.
Okay, so maybe we'll wait to the end, because there is a lot that I want to show you, and then I'm happy to stay as long as you want to answer questions. So after the Bloomberg plan failed, I decided to spend time with the opponents to Bloomberg. And there's a pretty good map there. There was a home rule message by the city council, and if you look in green, those are the areas that supported the Bloomberg plan, and in purple, those that opposed it. If you look in green, all of Manhattan, all the Manhattan council members supported it. Not a tough sell. If you look in the Bronx, all supported it with one abstention. You look in Brooklyn and Queens, and all the council members who had a bridge that would be tolled, would be charged, supported it. Why would they support it? Well, because we have something called bridge shopping, which sends people from the toll bridges over to the free bridges and jams their neighborhoods. And I'll get into that some more. So it was really the outer parts of Brooklyn, Queens, and central Brooklyn and central Queens that we had difficulties with. So that's where I spent literally years going around to elected officials, civic groups, and others, trying to hear what they had to say. And was there something that could be crafted that's both a good plan and something that can deal with some of the opposition there? And I think we hit upon it with Move New York. These are the 5 things that I heard the most. The first thing, no matter what you call it a user fee, call it a congestion charge, whatever you call it, they hear the word tax. These I'm talking about the opponents when I went around. The other thing was, there's something sacred about traveling between boroughs, which we know is not true, because the only way to get from the Bronx to Queens directly is by toll facilities. The only way to leave Staten Island is via toll facilities. Yet I kept hearing, we're one city, why are you putting up barriers in one city? The one that I hear all the time is no trust that the dollars will go to transportation or they'll be spent wisely. And the fourth, hey, what I heard is you're asking us to kick in money for the transit system. We already kick in money when we use the Throgs Neck, the Verrazano. Now you want us to kick in more money when we do that. But you're giving us nothing in return. And the fifth, and I remember the first time I heard it, it was Borough President Marty Markowitz, who, I lived in Brooklyn for more than half a century. But the kids grew up, I finally moved to Manhattan. And Marty and I lived a block away from each other. We knew each other for many years. He first was reluctant to meet with me, and then he said, I'm taking away your Brooklyn passport. But then he began to pound on the table. He said, you Manhattanites, now he knew I lived in Brooklyn most of my life at that point. He said, you Manhattanites, during the course of your day, you will be unaffected because you're not going to be in a car crossing the Brooklyn Bridge. You're not going to be crossing the Queensboro Bridge. Yet you're going to get most of the benefit here. And I thought about that, and you know what? There was something true to what he said. So in the Move New York plan, I decided to see if we can address all 5 of these. And so this is what I was hearing. In our backyard, if it was Little Neck, or if it was Whitestone, or if it was Throgs Neck, they'd say, look at that bridge over there. You're charging me a fortune to cross that bridge. Today it's $17 cash, $11.52, Easy Pass round trip. You're taking most of that money and you're giving it to transit. Okay, but then you give us lousy transit. So we're charging the wrong people, is what I learned from this. We have bizarre situations that don't exist anywhere in the world. We have a free crossing sandwiched closely between 2 toll crossings. What does that mean? It means every single day people are taking the LIE and jumping off at Van Dam Street just before the toll. They're snaking their way through Sunnyside and Long Island City in torturous traffic. The traffic department was at Queens Plaza. I spent 11 years in right where that torturous traffic is. Well, they're hopping off the GCP or the PQE to avoid the tolls. I did a study of this and found about 40,000 motor vehicles every single day are unnecessarily in Long Island City and East Midtown near the Queensboro Bridge. That is 2nd Avenue, it's 3rd Avenue, it's 1st Avenue, it's Queens Plaza, it's Queens Boulevard, it's Northern Boulevard. They're saturating those streets because of the crazy toll structure that we have. And you can see the crash rates and fatality rates are very high because people are leaving highways to go out of their way using city streets. On highways, they don't hit pedestrians. They're not driving by where people work and live. So, and it's part of this whole thing. When I said Moses gave good service, the 3 toll crossings that remain, remember the other 4 East River bridges were all tolled, are Moses facilities, the Battery Tunnel, the Midtown Tunnel, and the Triborough Bridge. But Moses didn't say, just I'm going to charge you. They also gave you 100 miles of highway leading up to that. So the LIE, you could take the LIE all the way out almost to the Hamptons. You could take the Triborough Bridge into the Grand Central Parkway to the Northern State, or take the belt system from the Battery Tunnel all the way out into the Southern State. So he gave really good service. But our policy is such that drive in from Long Island, drive in from Brooklyn, drive in from Queens, drive in almost all the way just before you're going to get to Manhattan, hop off and use the city streets. Don't stay on the highway. So people are hopping off the Battery Tunnel to use the Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, hopping off the LIE to use the Williamsburg Bridge or the Queensboro, and the Triborough to use the Queensboro. So our policy makes no sense. We encourage people to use city streets over highways that were built for traffic, and it's the result of those 3 men, really, that I told you about in the very beginning. And this is the worst of all. This is the New Jersey Truckers Special, another act of Congress caused this. And this is Guy Molinari, 1986, Staten Island congressman, powerhouse Republican, who was able to get legislation so tolls at the Verrazano are only charged one way going into Staten Island. But what that did is it doubled the toll. And as the toll kept going up, that truly became a wall of dollars. So that if you are a trucker, if you're this big trucker, 5-axle trucker, and you're at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn or downtown Brooklyn somewhere, you've got a choice. You could take the highways designed for you, I-278 into the Verrazano, Staten Island Expressway, the Goethals. You're heading to Newark Airport, say. And you go straight out and stay on highways the entire way. Or you can rumble down Flatbush Avenue, bounce across the cracking and creaking Manhattan Bridge, which I used to be in charge of, and then take a nice tour of Little Italy and Chinatown and Soho, and go out to Holland, and the bigger trucks go out the Lincoln Tunnel. If you're a big truck, we will charge you $96 to do that. If you want to go through, Staten Island, but if you want to go through Manhattan, $0. So the bigger you are, the more money you save driving through Manhattan. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy policy that we have. And then the other thing is, every 2-3 years we're being hit. Whether you're a subway rider or you're crossing any of the toll facilities, you're getting hit every couple of years. 8 toll increases since 2000 at the Throgsneck, the Whitestone, the Verrazano, the tunnels. 6 fare increases since 2000. But at the Queensboro Bridge or the Manhattan Bridge, still 0 since 1911. Something is wrong with this equation. And this is our current dysfunctional pricing scheme. Free bridges mixed with toll for crossings, which means people shop for the cheapest bridge. Again, insanity. Nobody would ever design something like this. So what I would recommend is let's wipe the slate clean. let's say here we are, this is a group of very smart people, and our goal was to rationalize the tolling system, knowing full well that a portion of that would go to support the heavy rail system in Manhattan's central business district. Would we, as a group of smart people, say, you know, let's toll the Throgs Neck Bridge all the way up in the corner? Well, that doesn't seem to make sense because those people aren't going to the central business district. Or for that matter, the Rockaways. Why are we charging people in the Rockaways to pay for the heavy rail system going into Manhattan? But we're not charging the people that are going into the central business district. So I maintain a rational plan is to charge the people coming into the central business district. And so this is what the Move New York toll swap looks like. We lower the tolls on every Moses Bridge because it doesn't go to the central business district. All 7 Moses Bridges have their tolls slashed. $5 off round trip. I just picked the number. It turns out to be 38 to 46%. The tolls get returned to the East River Bridges and tolls for traffic entering at 60th Street. The toll rate is set at what the toll rate is today. At the Throgs Neck or the Midtown Tunnel, it's $5.76. And that's $11.52 round trip cost. You'll see that number. Now we recommend doing it 24 hours a day, but more during the peak periods and maybe a little less on weekends. Make it seasonal, possibly make it dynamic because the technology is getting so good.
Paying to go in and out?
No. Well,
Instead of round trip.
ultimately it would be just to go in, but we're showing it going in and out because right now that's how the Midtown Tunnel, the TBTA, does it on all their bridges and crossings except for the Verrazano. And dealing with Marty Markowitz and the others, how do people in Manhattan contribute to congestion? Well, not when they're on the subways, but when they're taking Ubers, when they're taking Lyfts, when they're taking taxis, they're contributing to congestion. So we add a fee, a taxi surcharge, a for-hire vehicle surcharge that is based on distance and time coming into the area, which is what your taxi trip is based on today. The bottom line is the net revenue after we deduct whatever we reduce the TBTA tolls, whatever we assign to operations and maintenance, about $200 million a year, we end up with $1.5 billion a year. Banks have come to see me. I'm a private citizen here. I have no authority whatsoever. But banks have come to see me and said, we think you could do a 10 to 15 to more than that ratio for bonds if you wanted to put this into the capital program. So you might get $15 to $20 billion out of this if you wanted to bond it. Or you could do pay as you go. And the local jobs per year, HR&A, we commissioned them to do a study, and they found spending $1.5 billion on the infrastructure in New York City would generate 30,000 jobs. So it's a big jobs plan as well. And speeds would be improved significantly, around 20% travel time.